I am a composer who works at the University of Illinois. I teach computer science and music degrees or I should say courses, in the School of Music at the University of Illinois. And when I'm not doing that, I'm composing and doing research, especially around spatial audio and kind of interactive performance systems and a little bit of music analysis. I got into music and computer science by complete accident. When I was an undergraduate, I wanted to study music, and my parents said they would pay for college. So when I started talking about the conservatories and places I wanted to study music in, they said, no way are we spending money on a music degree like that. Now, you can go to this school, Carnegie Mellon, where you can do both, and we'll pay for it, both music and there it was electrical and computer engineering. So I ended up with 2 degrees out of undergrad, a BS in engineering and a BFA in music composition and conducting. So when I went to graduate school, I went there to UC San Diego to study composition, but because I had this ECE degree, they were like, well, you can pay your way by being a research assistant for Miller Puckette and Dick Moore and Peter Otto and Jerry Balzano, all these people who did some kind of music and technology related, whether it was acoustics or perception of music or computer music. And so I ended up being an RA and a TA, even though I was studying composition. And so then my first job was actually computer music at the University of Limerick in Ireland. And that's how I ended up in Illinois. They have a program in computer science plus music, and they were looking to replace someone who retired. It was a perfect fit. There is a connection between computer science and music that can come from a lot of different factors, but it's probably more accurate to say that there's a connection between music and technology and the sciences. Personally, for me as a composer, I take a lot of inspiration from mathematical and scientific processes that result in interesting data or interesting images and things like that. And I like to translate them into sound in some cases, sometimes decision making for performance, a wide range of things. There's just a lot of places to get inspiration from as a composer. When you work with electronics and computers and music, then there's some very direct applications between engineering, computer science, and music, whether you're talking about digital signal processing, programming a computer to synthesize sounds, to process sounds, to manipulate sounds. Everybody uses computers now for their audio. If even the most traditional composers will work with a computer at some point in making their music, even if it's to use software to simply typeset a score. So there's so many connections and so many levels. For me, it can be in the process of doing sound synthesis for my electronic music, my computer music, or it can be in a more inspirational way. Here's this cool process that describes the way clouds form, and that can be a really cool equation for getting interesting results out of a musical process. A lot of people ask me what the future of music and engineering is, or they ask what the future of computer music is. And it's a little bit of a cop-out, but the truth is, I don't think we're going to call it computer music in the future. We're not going to call it music and engineering in the future. I think computers and the sciences and the things that happen with digital audio and in visual arts as well, digital video, digital image, I think all of that is going to be so much commonplace in art making in the future that we will no longer make that distinction. We'll no longer say digital art. We'll no longer say computer music. We'll just call it art and music, because we won't need to make the point that there's technology involved in it. It's just going to be ubiquitous and so commonplace. And we can see it already, children coming up through school with technology as a part of their learning experience, and they come up listening to music on their phones, watching videos on their laptops. they're not going to see those technologies are transparent to them. So when they come to college and start making music and art with those technologies, it's not going to be special anymore, that it's going to require a name. So it's a bit of a cop-out. That's the future. The future is it doesn't have one, because it's just going to be rolled right into art and music making. I first came to Virginia Tech when I was applying for a job here. I didn't get it, but I made some really great connections with Ben and Itzo. And so I kept in touch with them, came back through for conferences and events, things like that. Eric Lyon was also a friend of mine from before he came to Virginia Tech. So I came here for the Seamus conference in 2015, came here for the NIME conference in 2018, got to work with Eric and Itzo and Tanner and Ben. And so we just sort of developed a working relationship over these years. And then 2018-19, I was on sabbatical, and they so generously allowed me to come here for a month while I was on sabbatical. The interaction with ICAT has always been focused around the cube, because one of my research interests is spatial audio. So it made a lot of sense to be involved with the cube and the people doing spatial audio in there. And a little bit with performance. I worked with Itzo with the laptop orchestra when I was here, because I do live performance with computers, so it made sense. And I think that's the history of my interaction with ICAT. Getting to the Wednesday concert was a process that took years, because there were multiple pieces that Miller and I worked on as part of the Higgs Whatever. And so there was a piece called Remnant, which was developed in New York for in the residency we had there. There was a piece called Who Is That Timbre I Saw You With, which was actually premiered here at Virginia Tech at the NIME conference. There was Cover Fire, which was a piece developed for a festival in Florida. And I'm probably forgetting some. There was All You Need Is Lunch, which was a pandemic project. These all happened. The earliest piece would have been Who Was That Timbre I Saw You With? And so these are all pieces we've been working on since, 2018, over the course of the five years since then. And what we wanted to do was to combine these into one concert. And we were thinking about, well, where can we try this concert out for the first time? And it's like, oh, well, we have all these friends at Virginia Tech. Maybe they'll let us do it. So we sent a proposal to them with a list of the pieces and a kind of overview of the tech that would be required. And they came back and said, yes, this sounds great. Please do come. And so that's how we got to the concert on Wednesday. It was really... It wasn't one big work that we sat down and said, okay, we're going to make concert length of things. It was just we had all these individual projects, and we got to the point where there were enough of them to have a concert length. My relationship with Miller Puckette changed a lot over the years I've known him, because when I first met him as a graduate student, I was his research assistant and his teaching assistant, but I wasn't actually his student because I was in composition, not computer music. So he was supervisory, but he wasn't in charge of any of my grades, unless I think there was a seminar I chose to take at some point that he led. But he wasn't the main person in charge of my PhD. So we still able to have a different kind of supervisory relationship. And then when I graduated and got my full-time work in Limerick, we had some years of separation there. And then I guess in 2008 we reconnected at a conference, and the relationship had changed by that point. We were more friends at that point than supervisor and student or mentor and mentee. You grow when you finish, and And when you get your own work and you're a professional out doing your own work, you grow outside of that relationship, you grow beyond it. But it wasn't until 2014 when we found ourselves in Berlin at the same time. He was on sabbatical and I was there for a conference, and we started talking about our work and realized that we could actually do some really cool projects together. And that's when it really became a partnership and collaboration, because then, you know, we were both bringing the same thing to the table. You know, we were both bringing experience and both bringing established practice. And, you know, I that was 9 years after I had finished the PhD. I had grown up, and so, you know, I think what helped being able to transition into that different relationship was the distance. You know, it wasn't that I was always in San Diego and had to, you know, and met with Miller every week or whatever as that changed. It was one of those, I went away, and when we got back together again, we were in a different place. So that's kind of how the relationship changed over what amounts to 30 years, something like that. Almost 30 years, 26 years. I think young people have a lot more opportunity these days if they want to explore new fields and new crossovers and new interdisciplinary work. When I was younger, you know, it just, you didn't even really have computer science in the schools yet. I mean, there was an elective where you could go in and learn how to use a computer, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity. And yeah, in order to come out as a interdisciplinary practitioner, I had to get 2 undergraduate degrees. I got a ECE degree and a music degree, and you know, there were a couple of programs. I think Northwestern had a double major in engineering and music, but you know, but they were rare. These days, there's all kinds of interdisciplinary degrees you can get. Yes, you can find traditional music degrees in music schools, but you know, for example, at the University of Illinois, we have a computer science plus music degree in the music school. And these degrees have been designed by people like me and others who've had the background in multiple fields and said, what do you need in order to actually be multidisciplinary? What are the key things to take away? But if you're still in high school or in middle school and you're trying to figure out how do I combine things, you know, I think you might be surprised by just talking to your teachers. You know, I had a physics teacher in high school who showed us, you know, okay, so, you know, this is how air pressure works, and this is how air pressure turns into sound, and you know, we had to do the maths and the calculus and the equations to model those sound pressure waves. But it was, you know, so it connected to my interest in sound, and that served me well when I got to college and had to, you know, think about the way waveforms are made up of partials or something like that. You know, so my advice actually to students who are still in high school is, what's really important is go to your favorite teacher, the one who inspires you the most, and say, I really want to combine this with this. And they might not be able to say exactly how to combine it, but they might be able to say, well, as your physics teacher, I think you should learn these equations. You should read this book, and that will start you off. So, but yes, after high school, or even in high school, talk to your guidance counselors in schools and ask them what colleges have these double majors, what colleges have these special degrees. You know, and there are art and technology degrees, there are computer music degrees, there are music technology degrees, and so they exist now. And you know, I think going to your teachers and your guidance counselors to find them is what I would advise students to do.